My two childhood sweethearts are heartthrobs, and I look completely average. On the day they confessed to the beautiful student from a poor family, everyone turned to look at me, and at the pink envelope I was clutching tightly in my hand, with the kind of eyes that expected drama. Fabian shoved his hands in his pockets and said indifferently, "You're too ordinary. I don't feel anything for you." Romeo looked at me innocently and added, "Sorry. If my brother isn't interested in someone, then neither am I." My steps faltered for a moment, but I quickly passed them without changing my expression. I handed the pink envelope to that poor student, meeting the stiff expressions on both their faces. I tilted my head and asked in confusion, "Exactly what kind of wishful thinking are you two caught up in?" Chapter 1. After carefully evening out my lipstick in front of the mirror, I pressed my lips together and let out a long breath. My makeup today was perfect. I was sure Fabian and Romeo would like it. I glanced casually at my watch, only to realize it had been half an hour since school ended. Strange. Why hadn't Fabian and Romeo come to find me yet? Their teacher might like to run overtime, but never this late. I slung my backpack over my shoulder and easily found my way to their classroom. Peeking through the window inside, my sweet smile froze almost instantly at the corners of my lips. There weren't many people in the room, so I could clearly see it. A girl with a high ponytail was sitting between Fabian and Romeo, explaining a problem to them. I knew her, Katerina, the top student the school had spent heavily to recruit. On her very first day here, a candid side profile shot of her had gone viral on the school forum, and many had privately voted her the school beauty. At this moment, I didn't know what Katerina had just said, but the usually cold and taciturn Fabian actually let out a quiet laugh. Resting his chin in one hand, he lazily looked at Katerina and said, "You're amazing." The cheerful and lively Romeo even made a heart gesture and praised her. How did I not think of that inequality? "Katerina, you're way too smart." Warm sunlight bathed them, like a serene oil painting, beautiful and harmonious. But to me, it was nothing but blinding. Chapter 2. Knock. Knock. I tapped on the classroom door, trying to keep my tone as casual as possible. "Not heading back yet? I'm getting a little hungry." The sound of her explaining the problem was cut short. Both of my childhood sweethearts looked up at me at the same time. A flicker of displeasure passed over Fabian's handsome face. Romeo glanced at his brother, then got up and pulled me into the hallway. Smiling, he explained, "Violet, don't get the wrong idea, my brother's just asking Katerina for help with a problem. After all, she just transferred here and already surpassed both me and my brother to take first place in the grade. Did asking for help require sitting that close?" I hesitated for a moment, then finally said listlessly, "So, how much longer will you be?" Romeo didn't answer my question directly. He leaned down, studying me carefully for a few seconds before suddenly speaking. "Your makeup's too heavy today. My brother won't like it." I froze for a moment, a little nervous as I pulled out my mirror. Looking back at me was an overly elaborate, heavy makeup look. In the background was Katerina's clear, pleasant voice explaining the problem, something so difficult I couldn't understand a single word. Was it really ugly? Just as I was staring blankly into the mirror, Katerina suddenly stood up and began packing her bag. Fabian frowned. "Not going to continue?" Romeo half complained, half pleaded. "Katerina, you're not in a hurry to go home, right? You can keep going." Katerina paused, just when I thought she was going to sit back down and continue. "But I am in a hurry to go home." Lifting her bag, her tone turned cold. "If you have questions, you should go to the teacher, not keep asking me endlessly." With that, she turned to leave. Katerina hadn't looked at me even once from start to finish, but as she walked out the front door of the classroom, she shifted slightly to the side so she wouldn't touch me. Ironically, it was Romeo, chasing after her, who nearly knocked the mirror out of my hands. I frowned and followed after them. Chapter 3. Honestly, I thought that after Katerina snapped at them, they'd be upset, especially Fabian. No one knew better than me just how proud he was. But to my surprise, my two childhood sweethearts simply followed behind her at a steady distance, like two knights dedicated to protecting their princess. "Bro, she's really amazing." She was practically glowing while explaining the problem, so charming. From childhood until now, This is the first time I've been beaten by a girl. This feeling is so new. I was speechless. Romeo rambled on and on, then finally asked hesitantly, "Bro, don't you agree?" Fabian Jean gave a faint mem. I listened in silence, feeling deeply unsettled. Once we got into the Jean family's chauffeured car, I glanced out the window and saw Katerina helping her mother pack up their stall. Katerina was a poor student. Her mother had trouble walking, and often set up a street stand making pancakes after school to help make ends meet. Romeo clearly saw it too. He switched topics from praising her grades to praising her character, saying she was the most filial girl he had ever met. Fabian didn't chime in, but the look he gave Katerina was clearly one of admiration. I stared at her delicate, pretty face for a few seconds, then slowly rolled up the window and closed my eyes. Deep down, I felt a sharp pang of envy toward Katerina, envy that she could so easily gain other people's attention. The car finally pulled into the villa district. I opened the door, eager to go home, but Romeo suddenly called out, "Violet." He ruffled my hair, his beautiful brows and eyes filled with regret. "I'm really sorry. I think I might have ignored you just now." All the dissatisfaction I'd been bottling up on the way here dissipated with those words. I told myself they probably didn't mean it, after all. I'd always had a low presence since I was a child. So, I then heard Romeo's pleading voice. "When you bring breakfast for me and my brother tomorrow, could you also bring one for Katerina? She always skips breakfast, and that's bad for her health." I froze in place. After a long moment, I heard my own dazed voice answer, "Okay." Chapter 4. The next morning, I got up early. After carefully putting on a no-makeup look, I headed to the kitchen and quickly made sandwiches. I couldn't help my bias. I made Fabian's favorite flavor. Sure enough, when he accepted the breakfast from me, the frost in his eyes melted noticeably. Romeo's tastes were similar to his brother's, and he immediately praised me. "Violet, your sandwiches are so good, even better than the ones the housekeeper makes." In the past, I would have felt happy, but maybe because of what happened last night. Even with their approval, I didn't feel as pleased as I'd imagined. Instead, my chest felt heavy, like something sharp was stuck there. To shake off that mood, I rushed to their classroom as soon as the first period ended. And that's when I saw it. Fabian tossing the sandwich into the trash. I froze for a second, then ran over to pick it up. What's that supposed to mean? It was the first time I'd spoken to Fabian in such an angry tone, but he simply arched a brow at me, unbothered, and countered with a question instead of answering. "Is there a problem?" Romeo was chatting with someone nearby. Noticing the tense atmosphere, he came over, slung an arm around my shoulder, and leaned in to whisper with a smile, "That was Katerina's sandwich. I tried giving it to her earlier, but she didn't want it." My brother got annoyed, so he threw it away. My head buzzed, unable to process it. "She refused you, so you think it's fine to trample on my effort?" Fabian's expression darkened, and he said inexplicably, "We couldn't finish it, so why not throw it away? Do you really think your sandwiches are that good?" Romeo chimed in to back up his brother. "Violet, why are you being so petty? If you give us something, are you expecting to take it back? And I've been meaning to say, you only ever make the same few kinds of breakfast. My brother and I are sick of them." Hearing that, my face flushed red with anger, but I didn't know how to refute them, so I could only push Romeo away and run out of the classroom in embarrassment. Chapter 5. I ran all the way to the artificial lake in one breath. Panting, I came to a stop. Just then, a familiar female voice reached my ears. Looking up, I saw Katerina standing under a tree, earnestly reciting English vocabulary. Today, she wasn't wearing her usual high ponytail. Instead, her jet black hair was casually clipped back behind her ears. From my angle, I could see her sharp chin and the sweep of her long lashes when she looked down. It was strange. She was wearing the plainest school uniform, yet there was something about her that made it impossible to look away. I pursed my lips and was about to quietly slip away when a few faint meows caught my attention. Two round, chubby ginger cats had appeared from who knows where and were circling around the hem of Katerina's pants. She closed her notebook, squatted down, stroked the head of one of the ginger cats, and said gently, "Little ones, You've got the wrong person, I don't have any food for you. The ginger cats seemed to understand, letting out a few dissatisfied whimpers. So cute. Watching this, I couldn't help but walk over almost without thinking, handing Katerina my sandwich. I said softly, I have some extra food here. Katerina froze for a second, but soon, she accepted the sandwich and politely thanked me. Chapter 6. Katerina tore the sandwich into crumbs of bread and handed a small portion to me. We silently fed the cats together like that. Is there something on my face? Katerina tilted her head to look at me, her pale, glass-like eyes filled with curiosity. Why do you keep turning to look at me? Caught in the act, my ears burned, and in the end, I admitted honestly, because you're very pretty. Katerina clearly hadn't expected that answer. The corners of her lips curved. Thank you, you're very pretty too. Even though I knew Katerina was probably just being polite, her gaze was so sincere that I couldn't help feeling my face grow warm. I gave a light cough to change the subject. No wonder they all like you really are special. Katerina looked a little puzzled. They? She seemed to think of something, and her expression suddenly turned a bit complicated. If you don't mind me asking, do you like one of the Jean twins? My girlish secret had just been laid bare. I stammered for a long moment, unsure how to respond. After all, my feelings for Fabian Jean were practically common knowledge at school. Could Katerina be taking this as some kind of love rival provocation? I don't think you should invest so much of your feelings in them. She seemed to be choosing her words carefully, speaking slowly, just when I thought Katerina was about to warn me to stay away from Fabian and Romeo. She lifted the rest of the sandwich in her hand, her expression turning a little cold. You know, this morning Romeo gave me this and said it was a breakfast he had carefully made just for me. If I'm not mistaken, you made this especially for them, didn't you? To be honest, I think their so-called affection is cheap. This kind of gesture doesn't just disrespect me, it disrespects your effort. They've let down your feelings. Chapter 7. Even after lunch. Katerina's words kept drifting through my mind. Even a transfer student like her could see how the Jean twins disregarded me. Was there really any point in clinging to this so-called childhood sweetheart bond anymore? I looked at myself in the mirror again and again. In the end, I picked up the makeup remover and wiped away all the heavy layers of makeup. All because of a joke Romeo had made 2 years ago. My brother likes pretty girls. Violet. You probably don't stand a chance. Ha ha ha. From that day on, I wore makeup year-round, never once letting them see my bare face. But now, I suddenly felt tired. After all, Fabian had never once looked at me differently just because my makeup was flawless. So why was I wasting all this time and energy? Once I'd thought it through, I felt much lighter. That is, until I heard that the girls in PE would be running the 800-meter test. In order to lose weight, I'd only eaten some boiled vegetables at lunch. Halfway through the run, I started to feel tightness in my chest, my head swimming. Even so, I pushed myself to finish the whole distance, but the discomfort only grew worse, and I fought to suppress the urge to throw up as I made my way toward the bathroom to splash some water on my face. I didn't make it far before my vision went black and I fell hard to the ground. A long gash opened on my knee, blood welling out. The pain kept me from standing, and I instinctively looked around for help. That's when I met Fabian's cool, indifferent gaze. He was sitting on the steps, watching my disheveled state with complete apathy. Half my heart seemed to turn to ice in that moment. Thankfully, Romeo came over carrying a basketball, pale-faced. I called to him for help. Romeo, can you give me a hand? Romeo bent down slightly, but only pretended to pull me up, never actually applying force. I looked up at him in confusion. He tilted his head, his tone tinged with regret. Violet, I really want to help you, but you just argued with us this morning. If I suddenly help you like this, my brother will definitely be mad at me. He tugged at the corner of his lips in an unreadable smile. How about you apologize to us first? I stared at Romeo in shock, unable to believe what I'd just heard. Chapter 8. Because I'd been sitting on the ground for too long. Murmurs gradually rose around me. Whoa, who's that on the ground? You don't know Violet from class 3? The one who's always with the Jean twins? No way, I thought she was a great beauty. Ha, with makeup that heavy every day. How could she not look pretty? So this is what she looks like without makeup, full of freckles. Guess pockmarked sister really lives up to the name. Ha ha ha. More and more malicious stares gathered on me. I broke down inside and covered my face, not wanting to let my vulnerability show. But Romeo still had a smile in his voice as he murmured in my ear, "All it would take is admitting you were wrong to my brother." Violet, you don't have to be so stubborn. An unspeakable fury surged in my chest. With the last of my strength, I shoved him away hard, trying to get up from the ground, but someone beat me to it, pulling me up first. Katerina seemed to have jogged over. There was a sheen of sweat on her forehead. She slung my arm over her shoulder while shooting Romeo a cold glare, her voice sharp with anger. "Has your conscience been eaten by a dog? Your friend falls down and you can't even help her up." Romeo froze for a moment, then hurriedly waved his hands. "Katerina, you've got it wrong. I was just joking with her." He seemed to care a lot about how Katerina saw him, so he immediately dropped his casual act and spoke to me in a suddenly gentle tone. "Violet, are you hurt? I'll have my brother carry you to the nurse's office, okay?" Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Fabian had come over at some point. He bent down, reaching to take me from Katerina's hold, as if assuming I'd agree without question. But why should I? A sudden wave of unfamiliar disgust rose in my heart. I stepped back, letting Fabian's gesture fall into empty air. "No need." I looked up at him, my expression cold, and repeated firmly, "I don't need your fake, hypocritical help." This time, it was Fabian and Romeo's turn to be stunned. It was the first time I had ever rejected them so firmly. Romeo, unwilling to give up, reached out to grab my arm, but Katerina blocked him. "Oh, and one more thing." She lifted her eyes slightly, giving Fabian and Romeo a cool, deliberate once-over before saying, word by word, "Bullying a girl is really low of you." Chapter 9. On the way to the nurse's office, supported by Katerina. I kept my head down the whole time, not daring to meet her eyes. Noticing this, Katerina spoke softly. "What's wrong? Is your knee hurting badly?" I shook my head without saying a word. The pain in my knee was there, but it was completely bearable. What I feared more was the strange, judgmental stares that had gathered on my face. Katerina stayed silent for a moment. After a while, she said calmly, "If you don't mind, would you like to tell me about it?" I lifted my head to glance at her quickly, then dropped it again immediately, my voice thick with self-consciousness. "I think I'm really ugly." The things those people had just said were like thorns embedded deep in my heart, especially that malicious pockmarked sister, which instantly dredged up unpleasant memories. Back in elementary school, the boys in class had made a beauty ranking of the girls because of the freckles all over my face. I was placed last. When they read my name, the entire class erupted in laughter. On the very first day of middle school, a boy pointed at me and said, "So ugly." He even deliberately asked if my face was dirty, if I'd come to school without washing it. Later on, those same freckles made me a target for small group bullying. "What's ugly about you?" Katerina's confused voice cut into my thoughts. She gestured for me to sit on the bed in the nurse's office. Then, lowering her gaze to look at me, she said very seriously, "When you smile, there's a sweet little dimple at the corner of your lips, and your eyes curve like crescent moons. If it's your freckles that trouble you, then I want to tell you, in the eyes of foreigners, freckles are the marks left when an angel kisses you. They mean you're blessed and loved by angels." I stared at her in a daze. No one had ever said anything like that to me before. So, freckles could be a symbol of angels? "You're always telling me I'm pretty, but in truth, I've also been harassed and isolated in middle school because of this so-called beauty." Katerina sighed deeply when she gave her own example. "I want to say, beauty is your right, not your obligation. You shouldn't live inside someone else's value system. Insults are the misfortune of the ignorant. We don't need to apologize for ourselves just because of their gaze. You only need to remember a few words. You are truly wonderful." Before the school nurse came over to check on me, Katerina tucked a few loose strands of hair behind my ear and said gently, "Violet, you are truly wonderful." Chapter 10. Katerina went back to class because I made her go. After she left, I couldn't control myself and began to sob softly. This time, it wasn't out of sadness, it was because I was touched. While the school nurse was tending to my wound, I cried so much that my knee trembled. Once the wound was bandaged, the nurse began giving me in-4 drip. As the fluid dripped in, she said earnestly, "Classmate, you must eat properly next time. Don't end up in the nurse's office again because of low blood sugar. If I'm not mistaken, you're skipping meals to lose weight, aren't you? Take some advice from your older sister here. You're in high school right now. The most important thing is studying. If you really want to lose weight, you can do it in college. Your health comes first." I nodded seriously. The reason I'd been trying to lose weight was because of a gathering half a year ago. Romeo had lost at Truth or Dare, and his punishment was to carry me while doing 10 squats. He managed to complete the challenge, but when he put me down, he still complained, "Violet, you're way too heavy." I had wanted to retort, to say that at 1.65 meters, I didn't even weigh 100 Gene, but under Fabian's strange gaze, I'd flushed red with embarrassment and couldn't get a word out for a long time. In the end, I secretly resolved to make myself thinner and slimmer. But after what happened today, I completely changed my mind. Just like Katerina had said, beauty is my right, not my obligation. No one is worth me forcing myself to do something I never liked to begin with. The same goes for losing weight or wearing makeup. There are only 4 months left until the college entrance exams. What I should be focusing my energy on now is my studies. Chapter 11. By the time the 4 drip finished, it was already the end of the school day. When I packed my bag and stepped out of the classroom, I saw it was raining outside, and I hadn't brought an umbrella. Just as I was trying to think of a solution, someone tapped my shoulder. I turned to see Romeo holding an umbrella, grinning playfully. "Violet, come walk with us." He shifted slightly to reveal Fabian behind him, also holding an umbrella, his expression calm. I stared at them in silence. But inside, I couldn't understand. After what had happened this afternoon, how could they act as if nothing had happened, still inviting me to go home with them? Pressing my lips together, I refused crisply, "No." With that, I turned to leave, but someone suddenly caught my ponytail. Fabian let go, his brows furrowed, his voice low. "Violet, stop throwing a tantrum, okay?" I looked at him in disbelief. "You think I'm throwing a tantrum?" He gave a short, derisive laugh, his gaze icy. "What else? Isn't this just your way of trying to get our attention?" The tension between us was about to boil over when Romeo stepped in to smooth things over. He shot Fabian a disapproving look and grumbled, "Bro, why are you making a fuss with Violet?" Then, leaning closer to my ear, he whispered with a conspiratorial smile, "Violet, you're being silly. This is the perfect chance to get close to my brother." I used to love rainy days, because they gave me the chance to share an umbrella with Fabian, a legitimate excuse for physical closeness. Fabian would always warn me, sounding annoyed, to bring my own umbrella next time, but when I hooked my arm through his, he never pulled away. In fact, he would quietly tilt the umbrella more to my side. It was these small moments, stacked over time, that made me fall hopelessly in love with him. But now, as I looked out at the pouring rain, I suddenly realized I didn't like rainy days anymore. So, I refused them again. "No." Romeo's smile froze. Being turned down twice in a row, both brothers' expressions darkened. Especially Fabian, his brows drew low, and he sneered coldly, "Forget her. Let her get soaked." I pulled my hood over my head, ready to run straight to the security office to wait out the rain. But out of the corner of my eye, I spotted a familiar figure. Katerina was standing in the hallway, head lowered, looking for her umbrella. Chapter 12. My eyes lit up, and I jogged over to her side. My original plan had been to straightforwardly ask Katerina, "I forgot my umbrella. Can I walk with you?" But when her bright, clear eyes turned toward me, I suddenly forgot what I'd meant to say, and my voice came out shy. Would it be okay if I shared your umbrella?" Katerina nodded. Of course. She opened the umbrella, turned to look at me, and smiled. "My umbrella's a bit small, so make sure you stay close to me." With my backpack on, I smiled back at her. "Okay." Her umbrella really wasn't big. The fine, dense rain drifted in, dampening both our shoulders, but neither of us paid it any mind. We simply quickened our pace in unspoken agreement. When we reached the school gate, her mother was already there waiting. She was a woman who shared about 60% of Katerina's looks. When she saw us, her eyes brightened, and she hobbled toward us under her umbrella. Katerina quickly went to meet her. "Mom, I told you not to come pick me up on rainy days. Why did you still come?" Her mother smiled gently. "I've been limping for so many years now. Sweet girl, why are you still worrying about it?" As she spoke, her gaze suddenly shifted to me. "Katerina, is this your good friend?" Before Katerina could answer, I nodded enthusiastically and greeted, "Hello, Auntie," in a polite tone. It made Katerina's mother beam with delight. Seeing our exchange, Katerina smiled faintly at the side. She seemed to think of something, and asked curiously, "Violet, how are you getting home? Do you have a driver picking you up?" Hearing that, I instinctively turned to look for the Jean family's car. My parents are away on business most of the year and rarely come home. For the past 2 years, I'd been catching a ride to and from school with the Jean family. And then, to my surprise, I spotted the car parked right next to us. Perhaps noticing my gaze, the previously still car began to shake slightly, as if about to start moving. Romeo's hesitant voice drifted over. "Bro, it's pouring out here. Are we really not waiting for Violet?" At that, Fabian looked down at me from behind the car window, his tone icy. "No." Then, as if intentionally or not, he added, "Her parents don't care about her anyway. Why should we bother? Do you think she'd even appreciate it?" The moment the words left his mouth, the car roared to life and drove off right in front of me. Dirty rainwater nearly splashed all over me. Thankfully, Katerina reacted quickly, raising her umbrella to block it. She had clearly heard Fabian and Romeo's conversation, and looked at me with concern. "Violet, are you okay?" I'll admit it, in that instant when the car pulled away, a flicker of fear and confusion passed through my heart, like I'd suddenly been abandoned. But soon, that negativity was replaced by a strange sense of lightness. Staring in the direction Fabian and Romeo had gone, I slowly said, "It's fine, I'll take a taxi home." Katerina's mother and Katerina were both unfailingly gentle and patient. They didn't leave until they saw with their own eyes that I'd gotten into a cab, and as I sat inside the taxi, watching the raindrops streak down the glass, I realized I didn't feel lonely at all. Chapter 13. That night, I had a dream. In the dream, I was being bullied at school because of my looks, and I wanted to go home to tell on them. But the moment I pushed open the door, I heard my parents arguing. In my memories, both of them were always busy with work and rarely came home. Even when they did, it was endless fighting. That's what shaped my submissive nature. I was afraid of raised voices. So whenever I had a disagreement with someone, I was always the first to back down. But this time, unlike every other time before, they were talking about me. My dad shouted angrily, "Every time I come home you start a fight with me. What? Was I born owing you something? Let's just get a divorce." My mom let out a cold laugh. "Fine, the house is mine. The car and the kid go to you." My dad frowned. "I'm not close to Violet at all. Why should she go to me?" My mom shot back matter-of-factly. "What? You want to dump her on me instead?" Hearing that, I quietly closed the door and gave up on the idea of asking them for help. The next day at school, the same little clique cornered me again. They demanded I hand over all of my daily allowance. When I flatly refused, they got angry and dragged me into the bushes, beating and kicking me. It was Fabian and Romeo, passing by, who saved me. Coincidentally, they weren't just my classmates, they had just moved in next door as my new neighbors. To show my gratitude, I put half a month's allowance into an envelope and handed it to them in person. Fabian at first thought it was a love letter and refused me solemnly. "I don't date early." Romeo, on the other hand, couldn't resist his curiosity and tore the envelope open on the spot. When he saw the money inside, he looked at me in surprise. "Wow, bro, she's actually really cute." This is the first time I've gotten pocket money from a girl. I looked up at them cautiously and said carefully, "If you like, I can give you the other half month as allowance too." As long as you protect me for the next few days. The truth was, I was terrified that little clique would come after me again. I was no match for them at all. My grades weren't great, and though I'd told my homeroom teacher about it, he clearly didn't take it seriously. At my words, Fabian and Romeo exchanged a meaningful glance. Romeo was the first to step forward, smiling. You're a pretty interesting girl. How about this? We don't need your money. Just be our obedient little follower, and we'll protect you. Deal? I was a bit stunned. Instinctively, I looked toward Fabian, who seemed more reliable, but to my surprise, he, too, had his chin lifted slightly, waiting for my answer. The boy's handsome face was quiet. His gaze lowered toward me. My heart skipped, bursting like fireworks, and in a moment of foolishness, I agreed to their terms. Chapter 14. I woke from the dream, rubbing my hair. I wondered why I'd dreamed of the past. After washing up, I put on my school uniform and went straight to school by taxi. The first thing I saw was Katerina's mother's pancake stall. It was still a bit early at this hour, and there weren't many people at the school gate. When Katerina's mother spotted me, she smiled and waved. I quickly walked over and greeted her with a good morning. She asked, "Violet, have you had breakfast yet?" I shook my head, and so, with warm enthusiasm, she made me a pancake, the kind loaded with fillings and spread thick with sauce. Holding the warm, weighty pancake, I felt a bit embarrassed and tried to pay her, but she firmly refused to take my money, gently urging me to hurry along to class. My heart felt warm. As I passed Katerina's classroom, I noticed she was already holding a book, reciting classical poetry. The girl wore a clean, neat blue and white school uniform, her profile calm and refined, her ponytail tied high just like the first time I'd met her. I stood in the corner, watching her for a while, and for the first time, I felt the urge to study seriously. So, without greeting her, I lightened my steps and returned to my own classroom. After listening carefully through the entire morning's lessons, my head was swimming, my eyelids heavy with drowsiness. Our homeroom teacher, hoping to boost our morale, handed back the monthly exam papers. I glanced at my less than ideal score and felt my head grow even heavier. Chapter 15. After school, I found Katerina and, summoning my courage, asked her about a problem. Katerina patiently explained it to me. At first, I could follow along, but when she got to one particular step, my mind hit a blank. I didn't dare ask again, because I didn't want to seem stupid. Katerina seemed to notice. She immediately pointed to that step on the scratch paper and asked, "Is it this part you didn't understand?" I nodded shyly. Katerina pressed her lips into a small smile. "If there's something you don't get, you can interrupt me anytime. You don't have to feel embarrassed." My eyes welled up as I looked at her. It reminded me of the times I'd asked Fabian and Romeo for help. They'd explained things so quickly that I couldn't keep up. So I'd had to ask again. Romeo had tapped my head with his pen, half joking, "Geez, Violet, why are you so dumb?" Fabian didn't say it outright, but the way his brows furrowed made his attitude clear. They thought I was dumb, and they thought I was annoying. Ever since then, I'd had a deep-seated fear of asking people for help. But today, Katerina broke that fear. She was just like Fabian, cool and quiet in personality. Yet with her, I never felt uncomfortable. Instead, I felt completely respected, just as I was feeling quietly moved. Katerina circled 5 similar problems in her workbook and slid it over to me. I looked up at her in confusion. Didn't I say I understood? Resting her chin in her hand, she tapped her pen twice on the desk and smiled. "Then start working on them. Show me, with action, that you really have mastered this type of problem." Staring at the complicated problems in the workbook, my head throbbed. I pouted my way through them, then handed the workbook back to Katerina for grading. "There's a small mistake here, but overall it's fine." Watching her focus intently as she explained, a thought suddenly popped into my head. "I want to pay you to be my tutor." "HM?" She froze for a moment, saying nothing, just as I started regretting the impulsive proposal, worrying that it might offend her pride. Katerina readily agreed. "Violet, Thank you, I actually really need the money. She swung her already packed bag over her shoulder. Under the sunlight, she reached out a hand to me, warm in color and in feeling. Then let's officially start tutoring tomorrow. You'd better pay attention in class. Chapter 16. That night, I went to the stationery store and bought a pretty pink envelope, placing inside it the tutoring fee I'd prepared for the next 2 months. I felt like this gave it a sense of ceremony. Although Katerina had told me to pay her at the normal market rate for tutoring, I still couldn't help slipping in a small extra red envelope. The next day, when I brought the envelope to find Katerina, I discovered the classroom was empty. Directly across from it, on the school playground, someone had arranged roses into a giant heart shape. My eyelid twitched, a bad feeling creeping in. When I ran all the way to the playground, there was already a crowd of onlookers gathered. Standing on tiptoe, I saw Katerina in the very center, her expression unclear. In front of her stood Fabian and Romeo. A girl beside me sighed in envy at the sight. This is straight out of a drama, the school beauty being confessed to by both school heartthrobs at once. I wish I could experience something like that just once. Then someone in the crowd noticed me and shouted, "Whoa, Violet's here with a love letter, now this is going to be good." Right after that, I don't know who it was, but someone shoved me forward. I stumbled a few steps and ended up right in the middle of everything. Every single pair of eyes turned toward me, and the pink envelope I was clutching tightly in my hand with an expression that said they were ready to watch the drama unfold. Chapter 17. Fabian seemed to be confessing his feelings to Katerina. "Katerina, you're the most outstanding girl I've ever met." My arrival cut off whatever he was about to say. Fabian glanced at me casually, but when his gaze landed on the pink envelope in my hand, he paused, then gave a mocking smile. With his hands in his pockets, he said coolly, "You're too ordinary. I don't have any feelings for you." For a moment, my mind went blank. Was Fabian talking to me? I had no idea what he was thinking, so I decided to ignore him and walked straight toward Katerina. But as soon as I turned my head, I met Romeo's teasing gaze. He spread his hands, looking innocently at me. "Sorry, Vio, if my brother isn't interested in someone, then neither am I." Not interested. My steps faltered briefly, but I kept my expression neutral as I walked past them. Only then did it dawn on me. Fabian and Romeo must have thought the pink envelope was a love letter for them. It might sound absurd, but the truth was laughably obvious. I handed the pink envelope to Katerina. Meeting their stiff expressions, I tilted my head in puzzlement. "What on earth are you two being so full of yourselves about?" My reply set off a stir among the onlookers. Wait, did I see that right? Violet just gave a love letter to Katerina? This is that legendary trope, the love rival becoming the love interest? Honestly, that envelope doesn't look like a letter. It's too thick, like there's something else inside. But Violet does have a crush on Fabian, anyone can see that. Ugh, can you guys stop making malicious assumptions every day? Why be so nasty to Violet when she hasn't done anything wrong? I had no interest in listening to other people's commentary. Instead, I locked my gaze on Fabian and Romeo, deciding that today, here and now, I'd lay it all out once and for all. In the past, whenever I faced you two, I did lower myself, and that's why you thought I was easy to push around. I gave a self-deprecating smile, my eyes cold as I looked at them. Fabian turned his head away uncomfortably, his tone impatient as he shot back. Violet, so what exactly are you trying to say? Stop talking in riddles all the time. You came here at this exact moment just to stop me and my brother from confessing to Katerina, didn't you? You. The rest of his sentence was cut off by a sharp cry of pain, because I'd rolled up my sleeve and slapped him, hard. Smack! What do I want to say? I gave a cold smile, each word crisp and loud. I want to say, you're a fucking piece of trash. And you don't deserve my feelings. Fabian clutched his face against his fair skin. The red imprint of my hands stood out starkly. He looked like he'd been completely stunned. Romeo, standing behind him, was equally shocked. Violet, how could you hit my brother? Oh, right, I almost forgot about you. I raised my hand again and slapped Romeo, tilting my head with a smile. Your brother's trash. You're a little better, but not by much. After I said that, silence fell over the entire field. Then someone started clapping. Scattered applause broke out across the crowd, accompanied by a few odd voices. "She's so cool." "Nice." Watching her hit them was so satisfying. Katerina took off her earphones, closed her dictionary, and held it to her chest. Then, in a thoughtful gesture, she handed me a wet wipe. I took it, carefully wiping my hands, and gave a derisive laugh. "Like whoever the hell you want, except Katerina. And do me a favor, don't come around acting like idiots in front of me. After all, force works both ways. When I slapped you, my hand hurt too." With that, I took Katerina's hand and left without looking back. Chapter 18. After that day, my name once again spread like wildfire across campus. But now, when people mentioned me, they no longer thought of me as the twin simp. Instead, I was a woman among women, the alpha among females. Some girls from lower grades even came to ask for my WeChat. I politely turned them all down. I thought that after such an open and ugly confrontation, Fabian and Romeo would feel humiliated and stay far away from me. To my surprise, they did the opposite. They started approaching me even more often, trying to patch things up and go back to how we were before. I regretted it. Regretted not slapping them a few more times that day. During PE class, the teacher announced free activity time. Feeling a bit thirsty, I went back to the classroom to grab my water bottle. I took a big gulp and instantly noticed something was off about the taste. Frowning, I tried to spit it out, but the next moment, everything went black. Chapter 19. When I came to, I realized I was tied up tight with rope. Standing in front of me were several street thug-looking guys. The moment they saw me awake, they all gave me malicious smiles. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Who are you?" The leader gave me a disdainful once-over and sneered. "Who we are doesn't matter. What matters is, you pissed off someone you shouldn't have." Then, like they were performing in some bad drama, each of them took turns throwing out a threatening line, the kind of ridiculously over-the-top ones you'd hear from wannabe gangsters in TV shows. I just sat there, baffled. Even my fear started to fade. After all, who would be scared of a group of guys who didn't even seem to meet the average IQ standard? Before they could do anything else to me, the door to the room was kicked open. Police officers swarmed in, quickly taking the thugs down with ease. The same guys who'd been full of swagger seconds ago instantly crumbled, begging for mercy without a shred of pride. And then Katerina walked in. She hurried over, untying me, then checking me over for injuries, her face full of worry. "Violet, you're not hurt, are you?" I hugged her tightly, feeling a little wronged, and shook my head. "I'm fine." "Did you call the police?" Seeing I was unharmed, Katerina let out a slow breath of relief and explained. "You didn't show up at the time we agreed for tutoring, so I went to your classroom to find you. But your classmates said they hadn't seen you since PE. I tried calling you, but couldn't get through, so I called the police immediately." She patted my back in a soothing way, still a little shaken. "Good thing you're okay. You don't know, the moment I realized you were missing, my heart skipped a beat. Those thugs might not have physically hurt me. They might have looked like total amateurs. But saying I wasn't scared at all would be a lie. Because, what if the police had come just a bit later? I wasn't about to gamble my safety on finding out what would have happened next. Chapter 20. It only took a bit of intimidation from the police, and those thugs spilled everything, as I expected. The masterminds behind it were Fabian and Romeo. The gang leader admitted honestly, "Those two brats gave us a huge sum of money, told us by name to scare Violet from experimental senior high school. The plan was, when she got scared enough, they'd show up to heroically save the damsel." The police officer who had been listening the whole time snorted, "This is utter nonsense." They immediately had someone bring Fabian and Romeo to the station. At first, both of them refused to admit anything, but when the police pulled up the transfer records, Romeo cracked first. He claimed he just wanted to scare me, not actually hurt me. He even put on this pathetic victim act. Well, Violet's been ignoring me and my brother lately. Just the other day she even blocked all our contacts. Fabian wasn't as stupid as his brother, but aside from admitting it was wrong, he wouldn't confess to anything else, insisting they only wanted to give me a little fright. If, in the beginning, I had only thought of them as childish and self-centered, then now, I saw them as both stupid and malicious, frauds of the highest order. I couldn't be bothered to waste words on those two. Once I finished giving my statement, I left under police escort and went home. In any case, Fabian and Romeo were both adults. They'd have to pay the price for their actions. Chapter 21. In the end, the police placed Fabian and Romeo in administrative detention for 7 days for the offense of picking quarrels and provoking trouble. During that time, Mr. and Mrs. Jean came to me, speaking softly, trying to get me to sign a settlement agreement. I refused outright. I don't know which helpful reporter leaked the story. But a day later, this ridiculously absurd kidnapping incident made it onto the local news. Fabian and Romeo were now thoroughly famous in City A. At the same time, several of the Jean family's companies also took a hit. Because the incident was so vile, the school, for the sake of its reputation, soon expelled both Fabian and Romeo. One day, when I came home, I noticed a note posted on the front door of the villa across the street, property transferred. It seemed they had already moved out. A new rumor was going around school as well. Apparently, no high school in the area was willing to accept Fabian or Romeo. Their parents, unwilling to endure further embarrassment, decided to send them abroad at their own expense. Violet, why are you zoning out again? Katerina, noticing my distraction, gave my cheek a light pinch in disapproval. I snapped back to attention, immediately apologizing with a good attitude. Forget it, true or false. What did it have to do with me anymore? There were just over 2 months left until the college entrance exams. Right now, there was only one thing in my heart, studying. With that thought, I pushed all those irrelevant matters out of my mind, and went back to my tutoring session with Katerina, just the two of us. Chapter 22. The college entrance exams were finally over. On the day Katerina and I went back to school to pack up our things, I suddenly found a letter in my locker. It looked like someone had secretly slipped it in. I'm sorry, Violet. Honestly, we don't even know how things got to this point. Just half a year ago, we were still walking to and from school together every day, eating in the cafeteria together. You might not believe this, but we really did treat you as a good friend, even had feelings for you that went beyond friendship. But we were too arrogant to confess them outright, so we could only hide behind belittling you to mask our emotions. Especially me. I was jealous of the way you always seemed to favor my brother, so I purposely used mocking words to draw your attention, while venting my dissatisfaction. You're not ordinary at all, and the freckles on your face are especially cute. You're the best girl I've ever met. There was a long section after that, even with new contact information attached. Although there was no signature, I could guess with my toes who it was from. Can someone please tell me, why is it that even after those 2 pieces of trash went abroad, they still have to disgust me one last time at graduation? Do they really think their apology sounds sincere? Do they really think I'll be moved enough to forgive and forget? Katerina noticed me standing still and asked, puzzled, Violet, what's wrong? I slowly tore the envelope into tiny pieces, then turned back to her with a faint smile. Nothing. Just found something, not very important. After gathering all my books, I threw the shredded letter along with a few other old things into the trash can. Then I skipped over to Katerina's side, hooked my arm through hers, and said brightly, come on, I'm taking you to that amazing barbecue place. Katerina followed my steps obediently. For some reason, I glanced back. A breeze blew past, carrying some of the shredded envelope out of the trash. A few pieces landed in the grass, then slowly disappeared from sight, as if they had never existed in this world at all. But really, who cares about the inner thoughts of 2 rotten people? What mattered was that I was about to begin my brand new, leading lady life. Story 2. On New Year's Day, I accidentally overheard his conversation with a friend. I know, she's coming back soon. It's not that easy to end things. It's not like I don't have any feelings for her at all. I thought it was mutual love, but it turned out to be just a fleeting dream. Chapter 1. I woke up in the middle of the night, suddenly hearing the sound of a lighter outside. I quietly climbed out of bed, tiptoeing over, wanting to give Ryan a little scare. I gently grabbed the doorknob, opening a small crack, but heard his voice, filled with helplessness and frustration. I know Lara is coming back in March. She told me, it's not as simple as just breaking up. You don't understand. It's not like I have no feelings for her at all. After all, it's almost 3 years. My hand holding the doorknob started to tremble. My mind went blank, and my heart began to ache painfully. Well, let's just leave it at that for now. I'll gradually distance myself, and eventually find a suitable reason to break up with her. Plop. A tear fell onto the floor, and my body nearly gave way. I quickly steadied myself against the wall, managing not to make a sound. I couldn't believe it. The person who was just tenderly holding me a moment ago was now talking so calmly to his friend about breaking up with me, all because his first love was coming back. Come to think of it, I owe my meeting Ryan to Laura. Back then, she gave up on love to follow her parents to immigrate to the United States. Ryan was devastated, skipping classes, avoiding exams, drowning himself in alcohol and cigarettes. It was then that I, who had secretly liked him for a year, found my opportunity. I started to appear by his side, creating coincidences, orchestrating chance encounters, until we finally met, and got closer. Whenever he drank too much, I was the one who carried him back to the hotel. When he smoked too much and felt unwell, I bought him all sorts of candies to help him quit. When he fell behind in his studies, I offered to tutor him every day. During that time, he lost a lot of weight, and my heart ached for him, so I bought him nutritious meals every day. He warned me more than once that he couldn't forget Laura. Back then, I naively thought, she's moved abroad. How could she come back? So each time, I'd shake my head and say, it's okay, I'll help you move on. Finally, after a year of persistence, his heart softened. When we graduated from college, he bought me a bouquet of my favorite tulips and asked if I would stay with him. It's been almost 3 years now, and he has really been good to me. We've always been recognized by friends as the perfect couple, and I thought I'd never find another man as good as him in my life. Only now do I realize, in his heart, these 3 years were just something he settled for. I held onto the wall, standing there numbly. Footsteps echoed from outside, and I didn't want him to find out I was awake. Panicking, I quickly dove under the blanket, using the sleeve of my pajamas to wipe my face harshly. Click! The door unlocked, and I immediately closed my eyes. His footsteps drew nearer until they finally stopped right in front of me. After a few seconds, I heard a low sigh in my ear. My heart felt as if it were being scratched by a cat, the dull pain making it hard to breathe. Maybe on nights when I was unaware. This scene, him sighing beside my bed, had already happened many times. Maybe while I was planning our future, he had already been figuring out how to part with me gracefully. The other side of the bed sank slightly, and after the rustling sound settled, only an unspeakable silence remained. I slowly opened my eyes, holding my breath, tears slipping down from the corners. Ryan, is this the New Year's gift you have for me? Chapter 2. I didn't sleep all night. At dawn, I quietly left his house. I sat dazedly at a breakfast stand, waiting for my food. I had cried the entire night. Now, in the cold breeze, I felt much calmer. When the impulsive affection recedes, many small, unnoticed details come to the forefront. Reflecting on all the small moments, I realized Ryan must have liked me. Just as he said, it's not like I have no feelings for you. But compared to his first love, Laura, I could never come first. I chuckled self-mockingly. If that's the case, I might as well go along with it. I'll take these 2 months to slowly distance myself, and use it as time to forget him. I will let go of this relationship sooner than he does. It's much faster when 2 people walk in opposite directions than when one person is trying to move on while the other advances. I barely ate a few bites of breakfast before I planned to catch a cab to work. But my phone rang. I looked at the screen, hesitating. The phone stopped ringing before I could decide. A WeChat message popped up right after. Favorite Ryan, where did you go so early? Why didn't you pick up the phone? I frowned at the pinned nickname, changed it to Ryan, then replied, there was an emergency at work, so I left first. He replied with an okay, and didn't ask any more questions. See? He's so good at following through, he said it last night. And today it has already begun. The whole day, I couldn't stop myself from glancing at my phone. Before, even during work, I would send him a few messages, and he would reach out to me too. But today, my phone was eerily quiet. After work, I went back to my place, opened WeChat again, and still no messages. By the evening, still no messages. I absent-mindedly scrolled through our chat history, page by page, filled with sweet words like love you, miss you, care for you. I really couldn't understand. Everything had been fine. So why did it all change overnight? My eyes started to sting, but I didn't want to cry. I stared at the delete button, feeling reluctant. It wasn't until a 30-second countdown popped up on my phone that I frantically pressed delete, erasing our entire chat history of 2 years, 11 months, and 21 days. Staring at the now turned-off phone, I felt not only waves of pain but also a small sense of relief. Chapter 3. For the next 5 days, it was as if we had suddenly lost all contact. He didn't reach out to me, and I no longer initiated anything. Even my coworkers started gossiping, asking if I had broken up with him. I just smiled, neither confirming nor denying it. Mimi, you can't keep eating like this. If you do, I won't be able to lift you anymore. I ruffled my little cat Mimi while feeding her some treats, scolding her as I did. Buzz. The phone vibrated. I reached over, and to my surprise, it was Ryan. Hello, where are you? I laughed lightly. At home. Of course. Why haven't you sent me any messages these past few days? I frowned. Busy. Okay. What are you doing? Feeding Mimi some cat treats. Oh. I took a deep breath. Maybe it had been too long since we last talked, because there was a palpable awkwardness hanging between us. He felt it too, and after a few casual exchanges, he hung up. I sighed. Just like this, it's fine. One day, I'll be the one who lets go first. Honestly, I wasn't lying to him. I did take on a new project recently, and I've been really busy. The next day, after work, I grabbed a stack of documents, planning to head home and handle them. Just as I stepped out of the office, my feet froze. Ryan had come to pick me up. He saw me, walked over, skillfully took the documents from my hands, then grabbed my bag and wrapped his arm around me as we headed to the car. I took a few steps but eventually pulled away from his embrace. Why did you suddenly come here? He looked down at me for a moment. It's been days since we last talked, so I wanted to see you. A pang of pain hit my heart. So he still misses me, right? But then I thought, well, it made sense. After all, he still had some feelings for me. Come over to my place. I'll cook for you. I stopped in front of the car, smiling. I don't think so. I've got a lot of work today. I need to go home and do overtime. He ruffled my hair. Can't you do that at my place too? I couldn't find a reason to refuse, because I used to often go to his place to work overtime. Come on. I bought your favorite pasta. I looked up at him for a moment, then nodded. When we got to his place, I couldn't help but remember that night, and a feeling of unease welled up inside me. What's wrong? Nothing. He patted my shoulder. I'll go make dinner. You take care of your work first. I'll call you when it's ready. I nodded, keeping my head down, and quickly ran to the study. I was afraid that if I stayed a second longer, my tears would fall. I couldn't figure him out. A few days ago, wasn't he keeping his distance just fine? So why did he come looking for me all of a sudden today? My mind was in a mess, and I couldn't focus on my work. But before long, he called me out to eat. Eat more. He had peeled all the shrimp and placed them in front of me. See? He actually still loves me. He knows I love shrimp but hate peeling them. So every time he'd peel them for me before I ate. Maybe he was just talking without thinking that night. Maybe he never really meant it. Are you going back home for New Year's this year? I looked up at him, testing the waters. Yeah. Want to come with me? To meet my parents? He looked surprised, then quickly lowered his head. I'll give you one more chance, Ryan. As long as you say you'll come, I can forgive you. I might be busy during New Year's. You could come after you're done. Even the second day would be fine. I added anxiously. I might not have the time. Elena, it's okay. Don't worry. There'll be opportunities in the future. I looked at him steadily for a while, then forced a smile and nodded. Future? We have no future. Ryan, I'm going to take a shower, I said to Ryan, who was washing dishes, and went into the bathroom. Then I quickly took a shower, went back to bed, and turned away from him, pretending to be asleep. When he came in, he walked over to me and looked at me for a long time before sighing and getting into bed. The next morning, I got up early and left again. This time he didn't even ask why he didn't see me when he woke up. It was as if nothing had happened, and we returned to that awkward relationship. Chapter 4. I stood in front of the calendar, looking at the date, and crossed off another day. Half a month had passed. Now, I no longer check my phone to see if there are any messages from him. He sends me a message occasionally, but I don't overthink it anymore. All in all, things are fine. I've thrown myself fully into work, and I've also submitted a transfer request to the company. When we first got together, HR had asked if I wanted to transfer back to my hometown. I refused at the time because I wanted to stay with him. Looking back now, how foolish of me. Buzz, Elena, it's my birthday this Saturday. You should come with Ryan. It was Ryan's friend, Amelia. Did you ask Ryan? I did. He told me to ask you. I might not have time. Maybe Ryan could just go by himself. Oh, come on. Amelia sounded dissatisfied. It's Saturday, and you're not coming? That's too much. I replied awkwardly. No, it's just that I've been really busy lately. Oh, please. Just for a little while in the evening. I couldn't resist her pleading, so I agreed. On Saturday morning, I was sitting at the dining table eating noodles when suddenly, the door clicked open. I looked up, and Ryan froze in the doorway. Our sudden eye contact made both of us feel awkward and at a loss. I broke eye contact, lowering my head and absent-mindedly poking at my noodles with my chopsticks. What are you doing here? He changed his shoes, walked over, and sat down across from me. Aren't we going to Amelia's birthday party today? Isn't it in the evening? Yeah, I thought since I had nothing to do, I'd come early. He stared at me, making me uncomfortable, so I put down my chopsticks. Did you eat? Want me to make you a serving? He nodded. I quickly left the living room and went into the kitchen, but a few seconds later, he followed me in, standing behind me, watching. Go back out. You don't need to help. It's okay. I'll just watch. I sighed deeply. What's gotten into him today? So I quickly made him a bowl of noodles, not even bothering to crack an egg, and served it to him. Then I casually took a few more bites of my own noodles and stood up. Take your time eating. I have work to do. I'll handle it first, and we'll head out together tonight. With that, I escaped the living room. I really didn't know how to be in the same room with him. At night, I could pretend to be asleep, but during the day, how could I avoid him? I could only run. Not long after, I heard the door open from outside. Did he leave? I was just about to go check when a WeChat message came in. I'm going to the supermarket. Phew, finally gone. He came back in the afternoon, and by then, I had finished my work. When I saw Ryan return with bags in his hands, I froze for a few seconds before stepping forward to help. You could have just given money to Amelia. Why buy so much? This is for you. What? I looked up at him. He walked past me, headed to the fridge, and began putting the things he bought inside one by one, while scolding me. No snacks at home, and you don't even think of buying any. You often get hungry at night, and if you don't eat, your stomach starts hurting. So I got you some food, all your favorites. My heart clenched, and a wave of sourness rushed up to my nose. You see, this is what he does, ignores me one moment, then comes over now and then to show he cares. So contradictory. I took out my phone and transferred him 500 yuan. What's this about? Nothing. I just wanted to thank you, but I didn't have any other way. So I transferred some money to you. You should get yourself something you like. No need. It's okay. Just accept it. He smiled, the corners of his mouth lifting. What's up with you? Why are you suddenly being so polite? Isn't it normal for a boyfriend to buy food for his girlfriend? But you're not my boyfriend anymore. I thought to myself. Right. I smiled. I just wanted to show my appreciation. He didn't say anything more. That evening, he drove me to the restaurant. and as I got into the car, he handed me a bag, a New Year's gift. You've been busy, and I've been busy too, so I forgot. See if you like it. I tightened my grip on the bag and opened it. It was a necklace. Ryan has a great sense of taste. Every gift he's given me has been beautiful, and this one was no exception. Thank you. No need to be so formal. He turned his head to look at me, pinched my cheek. It's what I should do, as long as you like it. The affection in his eyes almost undid all the emotional strength I had built up these past few days. I bit my lip, thinking, this really is the last time. Why not a ring? A ring. We've been together almost 3 years. It's about time for a ring, isn't it? He went silent for a moment, and during that time, my palms began to sweat from nervousness. Ryan, this really is the last time. If you don't cherish it now, nothing you do in the future will ever make me waver again. Are you sure? We can be sure now, can't we? Elena, I think maybe we should wait a bit longer. The grip on the bag loosened instantly, and I lowered my head, laughing softly. I wasn't even sure if I was laughing at him or myself. Right, no rush. It's fine, I was just mentioning it casually. Don't mind it. With that, I looked away from him, turning my gaze out the car window. Chapter 5. During the entire birthday party, I wasn't really in the mood. I just sat beside him, forcing a smile, nodding along. Honestly, I didn't like some of his friends, because in their conversations, they'd always bring up Laura, always pulling me into stories of their unforgettable childhood memories. I had resisted before. Once, when I showed that I was unhappy, they waved it off with a smile. Come on, are you really mad? Elena, don't take it to heart. We all grew up together. It's only natural that we'd think about Laura now and then since she left. That's why we mention her. Besides, isn't Ryan all yours now? Don't be so sensitive. Ryan would also hold me and tell me, I only love you. Be more generous. Since then, whenever I'm with them at dinner, I just keep this attitude, whether they're right or wrong. I just go along with it. After the party, Ryan wanted to take me back to his place, but I refused, using work as an excuse, saying I had to get up early. He didn't say much. Maybe he was scared by my mention of marriage earlier and just nodded in agreement. After that day, my work really started to get busy, with overtime or business trips every other day. One day, while I was waiting for a flight to Shanghai at the airport, Ryan called. Want to come over to my place for dinner tonight? I frowned, about to refuse. When the airport announcement came through, attention passengers traveling to Kunming, your flight 3U8256 is now boarding. Please, you're at the airport? Where are you going? I'm on a business trip. He was silent for a few seconds, then said, sounding a bit annoyed, why didn't you tell me? Nothing worth mentioning. Do you need something? No, I just wanted to invite you over for dinner. Oh, I'm about to board. I'm hanging up now. I let out a sigh. He probably just thought of me on a whim again. How laughable. Once I arrived in Shanghai, I saw the messages he sent me. Ryan, let me know when you arrive. Ryan, just give me a call. I deleted the messages, ignoring them. That night, before bed, he tried to video call me. I hung up and sent him a voice message instead. Why did you hang up? I'm not dressed. Not convenient. He chuckled softly. All right. But why didn't you tell me when you got there? Forgot. How many days will you be there? Not sure. Let me know when you're back. I'll pick you up from the airport. No need. I can just take a cab myself. He paused for a few seconds. Elena, is it because I said we should wait on marriage? Is that why you're mad? Huh? I was a bit stunned. Why have you been like this lately? I feel like you're mad at me, but I don't know why. Can you tell me? Am I really the only one who's been acting strange lately? I thought, feeling a bit sad. No, you're overthinking. I've just been busy. If you don't want to say, forget it. We'll talk when you get back. The day I came back from the trip, I still didn't tell him and took a cab home by myself. After tidying up, I took a shower, picked up a pen, and crossed off a few more days on the calendar. It's been over a month now. I think I'm halfway there, at least now. My emotions don't fluctuate too much because of him. If he were to break up with me now, I think I'd be able to agree calmly. Chapter 6. He came to pick me up 3 days after I returned. I didn't know how he knew I was back. Maybe he asked a friend. Seeing him standing in front of the company, looking unhappy, I knew today wouldn't pass without an argument. Why are you here? He didn't respond, just stared at me, then took my bag and wrapped his arm around me, leading me toward the parking garage. I tried to break free, but he held me too tightly, and I ended up following him. He didn't talk to me the entire way, and I had no interest in making conversation. I wasn't sure why he was upset, because I didn't tell him I was back. Well, he planned to dump me because his first love was coming back, and he didn't tell me either. When we got to his place, I changed my shoes, but before I could go any further, he grabbed my arm. I calmly turned around and looked at him. Why didn't you tell me when you got back? I said I didn't need a ride. So, you can just go on business trips without telling me, come back without telling me, and I'm just supposed to figure it out myself? I sighed, pulling my arm free. Ryan, I don't want to argue. He glared at me, breathing heavily. At that moment, I actually wished he would say it, break up, but he didn't. He walked past me and went into the bedroom. I stood there for a while, then decided to leave. I had just changed my shoes when he came back out. Where are you going? I'm going home. Isn't this your home? I rolled my eyes. What do you think? He stared at me for a few seconds, then pressed his temples hard. Before coming over and pulling me onto the couch, he turned and went into the kitchen to cook. I sighed, shrugged, got up, and walked to the master bedroom. I opened the closet and found a lot of my clothes still there. When we had our 2-year anniversary, I suggested moving in together, but he refused, saying it was inconvenient for work. So back then, every time I came over, I'd bring a lot of my stuff, trying to make this place feel more like mine. I reached out, took a few pieces of clothing, folded them, and planned to take them back tomorrow. I thought, just like that, I once threw everything in here all at once. Now I'll take it all back, bit by bit, until one day it's all gone. After dinner, just like last time, I took a shower early and then went to the bedroom to pretend to sleep. What I didn't expect was that this time, he got into bed and hugged me from behind. I didn't move, and he leaned in close to my ear, whispering softly, Elena, you used to need me to hold you before falling asleep. Why not anymore? Used to? Yeah. Why was I always the one who made the first move? I kept my eyes closed, letting him hold me. Seeing I wasn't responding, he hugged me a bit tighter, burying his head in my neck and kissing it softly. It's been a long time since I've held you. In the past, I liked falling asleep in his arms, but he always complained it was too hot. He'd let go in the middle of the night and turn his back to me, so I suggested that he hold me for half an hour before we sleep, then let go. He was a little impatient but agreed. I still didn't say anything, and that night, he held me just like that until we fell asleep. In the middle of the night, I suddenly needed to use the bathroom and found that he wasn't in bed. I walked to the door and opened a crack. Sure enough, he was on the phone again. I know, I just suddenly realized I can't be without her. Tried to distance myself for a month, but ended up missing her like crazy. Couldn't control myself and got her back. I froze slightly. I don't know what to do. I'm really confused right now. Yes, I can't forget Laura, but it's Elena who has been with me these past years. Like I said before, it's not like I have no feelings for her. Not sure. She mentioned marriage last time, and I brushed it off. We've been at odds for the past few days. Laura will be back in 2 weeks. I'm really lost right now. My eyes widened. 2 weeks? It's sooner than expected. I can't drag this out any longer. I closed the door, finished using the bathroom, and returned to bed. The next morning, I woke up to find an arm around my waist. I frowned, trying to move it away, but as soon as I moved, he tightened his grip and pulled me into his embrace. Why are you up so early? I have to go to work. I pushed his hand away. Sleep a bit longer. I'll take you. No, I can't sleep anymore. You sleep. He opened his eyes and looked at me for a moment. Then I won't sleep either. I'll go with you to have breakfast. Unable to refuse, I went out with him for breakfast. Then he insisted on driving me to work, and when I was about to get out of the car, he grabbed my hand. I'll come pick you up this afternoon. I looked at him, confused. Why? You used to be busy and found it troublesome, didn't you? I'm not too busy lately. He paused. I'll pick you up. We can have dinner at my place, and you can stay over. I'll take you to work the next day. No, I'm really busy these days and want to sleep in a bit. He stared at me for a few seconds. Then I'll stay at your place. I sat back down. What's going on? Nothing. I just missed you last night. Holding you. I had the best sleep I've had in a while. I was at a loss. Just let it be. Why? I laughed. It was time. Ryan, I'm a bit tired. Let's break up. He froze for a few seconds. Then his eyebrows furrowed tightly. Why? Just because I said we should wait on marriage? It's not that. Then what is it? He turned me to face him, forcing eye contact. Seeing the anxious look on his face, I couldn't help but want to laugh. What do you have to be unhappy about? Aren't I doing exactly what you wanted? He was stunned for a moment. What do you mean? Stop pretending. Didn't you say you'd distance yourself first and then find a suitable reason to break up? Isn't everything going the way you planned? What more do you want? He was dumbfounded. I could feel his hands shaking as he held onto me. You heard that. That day? Yes. I heard it. I also heard what you said last night. So, you don't need to struggle anymore. Go find your first love. I'm breaking up with you. Get lost. He grabbed my arm. No, Elena. I waited silently for him to finish, but he just kept stammering. Ryan, have you ever thought about what would have happened if I hadn't heard any of it? He didn't respond. I would have clung to you while you were distancing yourself from me, desperately trying to win your affection, doubting myself over and over. Eventually, when you finally found the right reason to break up, you'd be with Laura. I'd be left questioning myself endlessly, wondering what I did wrong or if I wasn't good enough. And that's why you gave up on me. I laughed. I might have ended up with depression, you know? And yet, all of it, every single bit of it, was just because you didn't like me enough. It was all planned from the start. I looked up, staring into his eyes. I honestly don't understand. Ryan, we've been together for almost 3 years. And I liked you for a year before that. I don't think I've ever wronged you. So why did you treat me like this? Just because I liked you? Finally, a trace of panic appeared on his otherwise expressionless face. Ryan, let's end this. Honestly, in the past month, I think I've pretty much moved on from you, really, but I will never forgive you. Not in this lifetime. That's it. Don't come looking for me again. He stared at me for a long time. Are you sure? I nodded. All right, he sighed. If that's the case, let's break up. I let out a small laugh, nodded, stood up, and walked away. Chapter 7. The next day, during my lunch break, I went to Ryan's place and took all my belongings. In the afternoon, I called him. Hey, I left your key on the coffee table. When are you giving me mine back? He paused for a long time. Are you really sure, Elena? If you don't want to break up, we don't have to. I was getting a bit impatient. Can you stop dodging the question? I asked you about the keys. I've made up my mind. Don't worry, I'll never contact you again. And for the record, I was the one who dumped you. Just to be clear, Elena, I'm sorry. Ryan, saying sorry 1,000 times won't change the fact that you're a jerk. Just throw the key away. I'm changing the locks. After I hung up, I deleted all his contacts, including his friends. A few days later, I received some good news. My transfer request had been approved. Chapter 8. Mom, I don't want to eat this. I stared at the cabbage and tofu soup on the table, lost in thought. I've been back home for almost 2 months, and my parents have fed me until I gained 6 pounds. So, they decided it was time for me to lose weight. Eat it. I even added a bit of meat. Aw. Dad, I really don't want to eat. Knock, knock. Knock. Who is it? I got up to answer the door. When I opened it, I froze. Ryan had lost a lot of weight and looked much more worn out. When he saw me, his expression softened, and he gave an awkward smile. Elena. I frowned. Who is it? My dad came over. Hello, sir. I'm Elena's friend. I came to see you both. My dad looked at me meaningfully, then invited him in. I bought some gifts for you. I raised an eyebrow, blocking his way and turning to speak to my dad. Dad. He's here about work. I'll go out and talk to him. I'll be back soon. With that, I changed my shoes, grabbed the gifts, and planned to leave. He tried to stop me. Leave the gifts. I pushed him away. No, that would mean we'd have to give a return gift. It's troublesome. I shoved the gifts back into his hands and took him downstairs. So, what do you want? Here to give me a wedding invitation? He looked tired as he stared at me. Why didn't you tell me when you came back? I had to ask a lot of people just to find out. I shot him a sideways glance at his words. No need. What do you want? He put down the gifts and grabbed my hand. Elena. I missed you. Heh. I shook him off. You must be joking. He shook his head with a sad smile, his voice full of sorrow. I'm not. I can't forget you. No matter what. I just can't forget. I turned my head, giving him a look up and down. Can't forget? What's there to not forget? I was genuinely devoted to you back then, and it took me less than 2 months to almost forget everything. Now, I've moved on completely. I let out a sarcastic laugh. As for whatever feelings you had for me, I bet they wouldn't last even a week. It's not like that. His eyes began to redden. Elena, I didn't see things clearly before. You have every right to be mad. But it's okay. I'll take my time to win you back. I'll wait for you to change your mind. You're sick, aren't you? What is it? Did Laura dump you again? He shook his head. Ryan, we were together for almost 3 years. I asked you at least 3 times to come and meet my parents. And what did you do? You always had an excuse to avoid it. And now? Now you want to come? I'm sorry. I don't accept it. Get lost. Leaving him there alone. I went back upstairs. I gave you a chance, and you were the one who didn't cherish it. Ryan. So just leave. I don't need anyone, and I can still live well, better, even. Chapter 9. Seeing Ryan again was about a week later. That day, I saw Ryan standing in front of the company, holding a bouquet of bright roses. He stood by his car, looking at me with a smile full of hope. When he saw me, he hurried over, handing me the flowers and taking my bag. The colleagues around us had curious, gossip-filled expressions on their faces. I sighed and had no choice but to go along with him. Didn't I make myself clear enough last week? He smiled, crystal clear, but I also said I'll wait for you. I frowned at him. Ryan, what are you doing now? Is this some sort of performance? No, I just want to win you back. I was speechless. He rummaged in the bag for a moment, pulled out a small box, and pushed it into my hand. The custom ring I ordered arrived. Look, do you like it? I squinted at him. What's this supposed to mean? Nothing. I just wanted to give you a ring. Giving me a ring after we broke up, it's not appropriate. Is it? Then let's get back together. I laughed in frustration. You're really something, aren't you? How can you say that so casually? You were the one who pushed me away, weren't you? Why is it that the breakup is up to you, and getting back together is also up to you? He raised his eyes, a bleakness in his gaze. I'm sorry, Elena. Back then, my head was a mess. I really was a jerk. But I realized very quickly that it's you I love. I let out a mocking laugh. Love me? No, you just still have some feelings for me. No, it's not like that. It's not. He grabbed me a bit desperately. Elena, maybe you don't understand. Laura and I grew up together. I always thought that I'd never love anyone else like I loved her. But then you came along, and you broke that belief. After we broke up, nothing felt right. Even when Laura came back, it didn't change anything. He seemed to give in a bit. That's when I realized, the one I've always loved is you. So, I came back to find you. So what? Do I have to take responsibility for your immature mistakes? He shook his head. No, I made the mistake, and I'll take responsibility. I just want to win you back. Elena, please give me a chance, okay? Sorry, but I don't feel anything for you anymore, not even hate. So, don't keep doing these meaningless things. After saying that, I got out of the car, found a trash can, and threw away the roses. Then took a cab home. Maybe I really did get to him, because for the next half month, he didn't bother me, other than changing numbers to message and call me. I hadn't seen him. Chapter 10. I've arranged a blind date for you. I sighed. Mom, I'm not desperate to get married. You know. Oh, come on. Just go check it out. There's no harm in it. Unable to win against my mom, I went. The blind date was a very polite gentleman, and though I didn't feel anything particularly special, at least it wasn't awkward. I had a nice time today. I hope you did too. I unbuckled my seatbelt, smiling as I replied, of course. Once I got out of the car, he handed me my bag. Would you like to see a movie tomorrow? I didn't have anything planned for tomorrow, so I nodded in agreement. All right then, I'll be off. Good night. Good night. I watched him drive away and was about to head home. After a few steps, I was suddenly grabbed from behind. Before I could react, someone picked me up. Looking closely, I realized it was Ryan. My temper flared, and I struggled frantically. Are you crazy? Put me down. No matter how much I cursed or hit him, he held me tight, shoving me into the back seat of his car and getting in himself. You're fucking MMPH. He kissed me like he wanted to devour me, one hand gripping the back of my neck while the other held me down so tightly I couldn't move. I found my chance and bit down hard on his lip, the taste of blood instantly filling my mouth. He pulled away for a second, then came back. He kissed me until I thought I was about to suffocate, and only then did he loosen his grip slightly. Who was that? None of your damn business. Didn't I tell you to wait for me? You're delusional. Why should I wait for you? I angrily shoved him away. He panted heavily, reached for his bag in the front seat, and started rummaging through it. Here's my household registration, ID, property deed, bank cards. I was stunned. What are you doing? He grabbed me, our noses almost touching. I'm going up to see your parents. Then, we're getting married. My eyes widened. Are you out of your mind? Yeah. I went crazy when I saw you getting out of his car. He hugged me tightly. I know I was wrong. Please don't leave me. Elena, I really know I was wrong. Please, please don't leave me. His voice started to tremble, and my nose began to sting as well. I closed my eyes, trying to calm myself. Ryan, you were the one who left me first. I really know I was wrong. I can wait for you to forgive me, however long it takes. But you can't leave me. Weren't we good together before? His hands holding my face tightened slightly. Didn't you want to get married? Let's go get married, okay? I swear, I won't do anything stupid again in this lifetime. I swear, I'll only love you. I laughed. No, Ryan, I can't be with you anymore. This is a hurdle I can't get over. After a long silence, he looked up, his eyes shining with unshed tears. Am I really that unforgivable? I nodded calmly. To me, yes. He held my face, staring into my eyes for a long time. It wasn't until my neck started to ache that he finally let go. Elena, no matter how hard I try, we can't go back. Can we? No. He slumped down, his head burying itself into my neck, and I immediately felt the wetness spreading on my skin. He was crying, a restrained cry, without a sound, just choked breathing and tears falling. I thought, sadly, how familiar this was. That night, I cried the same way. That day, before leaving, he told me, I won't bother you anymore. I wish you happiness. But Elena, I'll wait for you. If one day you change your mind, we'll get married. I smiled and replied to him, I wish you happiness too. Don't worry. That day will never come. Chapter 11. After I told my best friend Fiona, who had just returned from a trip to Xinjiang, about what happened, she immediately insisted on taking me on a trip to clear my mind. She said, I took some time off and followed her. BZZZ. Hello? Who is this? It's me, Elena. I froze. It was Amelia. Oh, what's up? Nothing. I just wanted to ask. Are you really done with Ryan this time? Yeah, we've been done for a while now. She sighed. Actually, I know everything. I didn't call to convince you to forgive him. I just wanted to tell you something. She took a deep breath. Laura came back. But Ryan didn't get back together with her. He didn't do anything to betray you, even though he talked a lot. After that call with my boyfriend, he kept regretting it. He said he wanted to distance himself from you but couldn't help caring for you. He does love you. Elena, I just wanted to tell you that your 3 years of love weren't wasted. I laughed. What do you mean he didn't do anything to betray me? Does it have to be physical to count? In my eyes, emotional cheating is still cheating. Fair enough. I was just worried you'd feel like your 3 years of love were for nothing and start doubting yourself. I won't. I didn't do anything wrong. All right. She paused. Honestly, I really like you and wanted to be friends, Elena. But now that we're on different sides, I wish you all the best. Forget him. You deserve better. I let out a small laugh. Thanks. Same to you. After I hung up, Fiona immediately ran over. Who was that? A friend. Seeing I didn't want to elaborate, she didn't press further. Oh, well, let's go. Let's see Uri Lake. I looked at the breathtaking view and suddenly thought of a song lyric. The sky drifts by with 5 words. It's all just nothing. Fiona nudged me, handing me a camera. How is it? Beautiful, right? From now on, let's be happy. Let go of what needs letting go. Break away from what needs breaking away. I lifted the camera and took a picture of the soft pink and purple evening sky. I'll consider this my way of letting go for this year. Breaking this connection. Letting go of these feelings. Leaving this person. Fiona pulled me into a side hug. Exactly. While we're young, we should see mountains, see rivers, see all the wonders of the world, and see the magnificent landscapes of our country. Why should we let some lousy guys make us sad? Our precious youth is ours alone. No one else should have the power to waste it. I laughed out loud. Right. We stand beautiful on our own.